Alas, poor Yorick. I knew him, Horatio. Hello everyone, I'm Father Aaron, and welcome to
The Dungeon Minister!
Now, we have left our heroes in a cave on the side of a mountain, very much afraid and injured. One of them particularly, Fauxfire, the thief, has been brought below half of her hit points by tooth and claw of the werewolves. My werewolves in this campaign are intelligent, and when in werewolf form, they sometimes use weapons. And if they attack using a weapon, that's not going to convey lycanthropy. But tooth and claw do, and Fauxfire was brought down halfway in her hit points, specifically by bite and claw and that kind of thing. So, she has contracted the disease. Now, she has a month before it takes root in her, in which she can be healed by a high-level cleric. But they don't know that she has it. They suspect she probably does. They suspect that a number of them might have this disease. They're not certain, though, and so they are going to make all haste back south and get to Kilmarnock. They know there's no cleric of a high enough level in Honeywood, so they are now beating it post-haste down to Honeywood. They can go on to Kilmarnock and hopefully heal anyone who has this dread disease. But for now, they're in the cave. Touchberry has used his sword, which has a healing power. He's used it as much as possible, and they have rested, and I gave them proper rest back in the werewolf compound in what was actually Hrothgar's headquarters at one point. And in this cave, they've gotten proper rest, so they have recovered some hit points overnight, but now they have to continue their journey. I believe they are actually back up, not Fauxfire, but everyone else is back up to full by the time they head out. They're also bringing with them Torik the Dwarf. Remember, Torik had been prisoner back at Hrothgar's Eyes in the dungeon underneath, and he'd been captured by the werewolves and forced to help repair the old fortress on Hrothgar's Eyes. So they're bringing him as well. Fauxfire has also, you might remember, gotten the great Bow of Sigmund, which is +2 against dragons. Sigmund was a dragon slayer after all. They head out of the cave and back in the direction of the goblin fight that they had in the valley, and then climbing back up to where they fought the giant. They reach the giant's ledge around evening. This was one of the waypoints that was intentionally placed here so that people traveling to Hrothgar's Eyes some 2,000 years ago had a place to stop along the way. All right, so they've got places that were set aside, and the ledge where they fought the giant and the cave where the giant had been was actually one of the way stations. And there would have been a bit more of a structure around it 2,000 years ago, but most of it's rotted away, crumbled away. But there was that ledge where they spent the night last time. As they arrive at it, they find something particularly disturbing. First of all, passing through the valley where they fought the goblins, there are no bodies left. They're gone. They're just gone. There's not even much sign of the struggle because snow continued to fall and cover up the remains, but there aren't even any snow-covered bodies. There's nothing. They get to the giant's ledge. This body is still there. This is not a body that anyone could drag away. It's a hill giant. It's not huge, but it's pretty big. And they discover, disturbingly enough, that something has been chewing on it. Something has been feasting on the giant's corpse. At any rate, within sight of this grisly witness, they camp, and again make themselves a snow fort against the cliff wall, which is something they came up with, which I thought was pretty clever. You're going to make a little fort out of snow to at least keep the wind out and hold some warmth in, so good thinking. They wake up there and prepare for their day. Fauxfire recovers a few more of her hit points. The elves memorize their spells. Bob Johnny takes his usual 2 magic missiles and a web, and Fleetwood takes light and sleep and web. And they prepare for their journey. Off they go. Incidentally, they are running low on food at this point, so they know they have to get back to civilization soon. The food they brought with had been augmented by food they found in the werewolves' cave, but it can only go so far, and now they've got another mouth to feed as well. They proceed, and they're making their way toward Highmark Pass, the pass which 200 years ago had seen a fortress built by the humans as they drove the goblins back north. This is the battle that had also inspired the construction of the keep on the Northern Sea, which they have visited and fought monsters in, and had leveled the forest of flowers around Honeywoods. All of this history is piled up here. In Highmark Pass, there had been a fortress constructed. Now, what they don't realize is that that fortress had been built on the ruins of an older fortress, a fortress that was one of the way stations on the path to Hrothgar's Eyes. Hrothgar's Eyes was built at another time of attack from the north, and it stayed there for some 500 years as an outpost, and it held the line in terms of an outpost and a fortress, and then there was a further fortress back here in Highmark Pass. Anyway, the characters don't know any of this. All they know is about the 200 years ago. They're about to find out. As they enter the Highmark Pass, they begin to hear softly on the breeze, because it's a very windy kind of place up here. Softly on the breeze, they begin to hear a sickeningly familiar sound. A howl. And they know it's Evalio, the leader of the werewolves, the head werewolf who had fought them so fiercely and who had escaped when he felt that he was overwhelmed and outnumbered. He had escaped. They don't know where he is. Was it he who chewed on that giant? Was he the one who took away the goblin corpses? Does he have other werewolves with him now? Or is he working with the Yeti? Is he bringing the Yeti in on them? What's going on? So, they are on edge as they enter Highmark Pass. There they see the remains of the old fort. But something's different. It had been covered in layers of snow. Obviously, it's just out here sitting out in the open. It had been covered up in snow and actually barely visible. The contours of the old fort barely visible. Now, all of the snow is removed from the center of that fort. There's still the ditch and the mound are still covered in snow, but in the center, there is a ring of stone. It's not huge. It's not it's not the entire size of the fort. The later fort would be larger, but there is a ring of stone, say perhaps 60 feet across. There had been some sort of structure here. Now that structure is gone, but the floor of it remains. And in the middle of that floor, there is an opening. A door has been opened, a heavy stone door, a hinged stone door of a construction so ancient and so skilled and accomplished and durable, no one at this time period would be able to reproduce it. But here it is, and this door is flung open. What's more alarming, though, is that standing by that door is a bone golem. Yes, a bone golem, an ancient evil which had been interred within the remains of the fort. Sometime after this ancient fortress, the first fortress, was abandoned, this creature was interred here. They're going to find out more about its history. And then later generations built their fortress on top of it, not even realizing it was down there. The hatch, when it's closed, that stone door, when it's closed, blends in perfectly. There's no way to tell it's there. Anyhow, standing there in the winter sun, which is slanting into this valley as the day wanes, there stands a bone golem. And here's the image I used for the bone golem. Relatively terrifying. I showed this to the players at the time, and they were suitably freaked out. Now they thought, can we just go around him? Can we get away from him? So they start to try to circuit the fort to go around, but as they do, the golem leaves its place and begins moving toward them, so they realize we're going to have to fight this thing. All right, Torik, are you in? And the dwarf's like, okay. He's not a fighter. This is not a warrior dwarf. This guy's a miner. He's got a family back home. He was just coming out here to try to make his living. He was going to find a new mine and maybe strike it rich and all that stuff. So this is not a fighter, but, what choice does he have? They did save his life, after all. So they prepare for battle. First thing they do, one of the elves, and I can't remember which, casts a web. Let's see if we can hold this thing. Well, yes. They can a little bit, but this thing is huge. It's a towering thing. It is assembled out of more than one skeleton. This is not just one skeleton reanimated. It is bundles of bones, skulls sticking out at various places, and it is tall, huge, 12, 13, maybe even 14 feet tall. This thing is assembled from a whole variety of warriors. It has 4 gruesome arms, each with wicked claws on the end of them, with which it moves to attack, slashing at the heroes. Well, the spell hits, it shoots out, and it does make its target, but the thing is so big, and it's got so many limbs, that it can get 2 of the arms. It kind of covers up 1/2, which means that 2 of the arms, at least, are out of commission. The legs are still free, and the other 2 arms are still free, so it can still move and attack, but it has half as many attacks in that round, while these 2 arms try to, tear through the web and get that off. It goes in for the attack. Now, Fauxfire intentionally keeps back for 2 reasons. 1, she's got this spiffy new bow she wants to try out, and 2, she's still low in hit points. I mean, she's better, much better than she had been, but she's still not at top, and nobody wants her being risked up in the front, right? So she draws back with the bow and starts to fire, while Touchberry, the halfling, and the 2 elves, and Torik the Dwarf tackle this thing in melee. This ends up being one of the most serious battles that the group has. It is ferocious. First of all, this golem, after a couple of rounds, rips off the webbing, and so now it has all 4 attacks. Now another web is shot, and this time they say we'll go for its legs, so that it can't run after us, it can't come after us, so we can go in, attack, and back off. That works a little bit. Its arms are long, though, so it does get some attacks in, and we sort of negotiate. Okay, well, it can hit in this case, it can get you here, it can't reach you there, etc. And that, again, it lasts for a few rounds, and the thing is able to tear the webbing off. It always has, though, those 4 claws available, so when it is free to attack, it has freedom of movement and attack. Obviously, magic missiles are shot, and those make connection, and they do some damage. Now, a unique feature of this battle is that every time they hit, every time they score a direct, solid hit, pieces of bone go flying off. Femurs and tibia and skulls go flying, ribs go every which way. Whenever they hit, they're knocking pieces off of it, chipping it down. And as they do, as chunks of bone go flying off, with it goes this ethereal vapor, almost a bluish glow follows the bones off, and wherever the bones land, the vapor sort of collects. And so the longer the battle goes on, they're starting to see this glowing ring of vapor surrounding them wherever bones have fallen. And they're starting to think, oh no, now we've got to fight some sort of ghosts, or is it going to respawn? Is it going to gather up together into bones and attack us? Nevertheless, this is the enemy in front of them. They have to keep attacking it. They have to keep fighting. But this is a tough monster. This one is not easy. Fauxfire, meanwhile, although she's got this brand new bow, it really is only a +2 against dragons. It has no advantage against any other enemy. And she just keeps missing. It's just luck of the dice. She's just missing. So arrows are going everywhere except into the bone golem. Oh well. Torik manages, I think, 1 or 2 hits, and then he just loses his courage and he backs off. I rolled a morale for him, and he can't deal with this. This is way more than he's ready to deal with, so he backs off. The heroes continue to fight, and they do eventually bring this thing down, but it's a tough fight. It takes a lot out of them. The fight is, in fact, so epic that my eldest son produced this image to commemorate the battle. Eventually, finally, hacking and slashing, bones flying everywhere, this vapor becoming a thick cloud around them, the thing finally falls. As it does, it collapses into a heap of bones. And it is actually, I should note, it is Fauxfire who scores the killing blow. After missing and missing and missing and missing, she rolls a nat 20. So this thing goes straight in and boom, bursts the bone golem to pieces. The last bones fly apart, and with it a huge burst of this blue vapor, and it settles in the ring around them. And now they're tense. What's going to happen? What's going to happen with this? Again, is it ghosts? Are they coming for us? Is it going to reform? What's going to happen? As they watch, the blue vapor moves and gathers in pools here and there. And from these pools stand up ghosts, bluish, pale ghosts of warriors. The warriors whose bones were used to create this golem. They are assembling around them. And the group, armed and facing outward, are now tense. They're pretty beaten up by this battle. They've taken a lot of damage fighting this thing. So they're now thinking, oh no, we've got to go into another battle. And they're all tense and ready. When one of the ghosts steps forward and says, "Thank you, friends." Thank you, friends. And this ghost proceeds to tell them,
"We were the last warriors in this fortress ages ago. We were the last members of the Night's Watch."
I steal from J.R.R. Tolkien. I steal from George R.R. Martin. If you've got 2 R's in your name, I'm taking your stuff. Anyway, the Night's Watch. It was a group of soldiers, a group of knights and heroes who guarded the north, just, like the wall. But they weren't criminals, I'll say that. They weren't sent there as punishment. They were people who had gone to guard the realms of men, etc. They and the elves, actually the realms of elves and men, because the elves were also part of this. Hrothgar and Hrothgar had established this order of knights to protect the south. These were the last remnants of that. And they tell of an ice age now, when their garrison was the last outpost of men in this area. When Hrothgar's eyes was abandoned, the werewolves becoming too numerous, too dangerous, the frost giants coming down. Another ice age was happening then as well, and the frost giants were coming down. It was the extent of the werewolves' invasion, and they came in force, led by an ancient evil, some wizard, some warlock, some creature of magic and power back then who led the werewolves in battle and carried the standard of Heremod, that white that they had fought back there. And this is something that Heremod was 2,000 years ago, and 500 years after he was defeated by Marnock, there are still people that are worshiping him and worshiping his gods and making human sacrifices and still carrying on his cult. This group of werewolves and this evil mage had invaded and defeated this garrison. They slaughtered them, utterly slaughtered every one of them, and this mage used the bones, the remains, to make this golem. The golem was interred in the remains of the fortress, sealed in there, so that if ever humans came back and attempted to re-establish their foothold in the north, they would uncover this evil and it would attack them. Well, humans did come back, but when they established their fort at Highmark Pass during the Goblin Wars, which are 200 years before the events of our story, of our campaign, so they re-established a fortress there, but they never went down, they never dug it up, and so the bone golem remained under their feet as they stood guard there against the goblins, awaiting the time when it would serve its purpose again, to attack any human or elf who dared to stand upon that ground. So the ghosts relate this story to them, and part of the story is that in the formation of the bone golem, the spirits of those whose bodies were used were bound into this evil thing, and so they have been tortured, woven into this evil creation. With a last whispered, "Thank you," they dissipate and vanish. The adventurers watched them go, and you could have heard a pin drop in that room. Finally, one of them, I think it was Fauxfire, my wife, says, "So where are we going to spend the night?" Because the last time they were here, they tried to just camp out in the open, and it didn't work out so well for them. Now, they have since learned about building snow forts, so they could do that. But then they say, well, can't we go down there? Let's see what's down there. Maybe there's some treasure. Let's go down there. So they do. They rig a rope up. They tie it to that stone lid, which is that stone hatch, which is open. They tie the rope around there and throw it down, and down they go. They climb down to discover a 30 by 30 room with a passage leading out of the center of each wall. One of the passages, they can easily see from where they are, has collapsed. Maybe it was never fully dug. Maybe it had collapsed somewhere in the last 1,500 years. At any rate, it is collapsed and unusable. So they begin to explore the 3 other rooms. One of them, also 30 by 30, was clearly an armory. There are the remains of weapons, rusted beyond all use, just disintegrating. But that's clearly what was kept in here, arms and armor. On the opposite side, they find another room. Maybe it was for storage. There's nothing left here. There's nothing identifiable. Piles of rust and dust and debris. Nothing even identifiable, much less usable or valuable. Then they go to the final room, the largest of them, a room that is 50 by 30. Here, they find the remnants of what may have been bunks. It may have been a barracks. but in the corner there stands a skeleton. The magic user who left that golem also left a skeleton, maybe a trial run, a practice for creating the more serious beastie. At any rate, as they enter, the skeleton stumbles forward toward them. This is a weak monster, it's no big deal. I only threw it in here as a sort of, oh, you think you're done, do you? So there's a brief fight. They easily wipe this thing out. It's a single skeleton, it doesn't have many hit points, doesn't have anything to fight with but its claws. It gets a hit or two in, but they easily dispatch it. Now they have to decide, where are we going to stay? Now, down here would make the most sense in terms of shelter. They would be very well protected, they would get a good night's sleep, except for constantly worrying that Evalio would come back. Because all he has to do is take the rope off, throw it down, close the hatch, and they are entombed. They have no way out. The ceiling in the surrounding rooms is only 10 foot, but the ceiling in the center is some 20 feet high. Remember, that's where the golem was. It has to be high to keep the golem in it, but also it's just a large shaft because it goes up to the surface. So what are we going to do? Can we risk that? Finally, they decide they will shelter here. Their hit points are so low, it is getting so cold, they need a decent shelter. They need to have a safe place to sleep, so they're going to risk this. They climb back up the rope, and they head south from Highmark Pass to a little clump of trees, which is near the entrance to the valley. It's not many, it's like 4 or 5 maybe. They chop off some limbs and drag them back so they can have a fire. Okay, they throw those down. They post a guard at the top of the hole, and they give that guard the bow, the Sigmund's bow. Again, it's against dragons. They know it's magic, at least. They know that Fauxfire, at least the players know that Mama didn't get any advantage when she rolled. I didn't tell her to add anything to the roll, so they know it's not magic against bone golems, at least. At any rate, though, it's still a long bow as opposed to a short bow. It has better range, so they put a guard up top, and the rest of them go down to sleep, and through the night, they rotate the guard. They needn't have been worried. Other than howling through the night, and occasionally even the sound of cruel laughter drifting on the wind. Other than that, Evalio leaves them alone. They don't know this, but he was brought down very low in hit points. He was very, very nearly dead when he escaped. So he's not going to mess with them. Not directly, anyhow. So they spend the night there. They wake up the next morning, better rested than they would have been if they'd tried to stay outside. And they eat a quick morning meal, memorize their spells, the same combo as always, climb back out, and begin to head south. They're pretty sure that if they push it, they can arrive at the Kobold and Knoll caves before evening. They're heading back there to recover the treasure that was buried there. Remember, when they cleared out the Knolls, they buried all the Knolls' treasure because it was too much to drag with them up into the mountains. So they're going to go back and recover that treasure, and they're going to spend a night at least at those caves, resting and recuperating before they make the rest of the journey. And they figure, well, we'll go down to the caves, we'll dig up the treasure, easy peasy. Oh, you think it'll be easy, do you?